Welcome to The Divine Mess, a sanctuary where the dance of the empowered masculine and the divine feminine unfolds in all its glory. Join us as we delve into the heart of these cosmic energies, exploring their attributes and the profound impact they have on our lives. From the raw power of the masculine to the nurturing embrace of the feminine, we uncover the balance that leads to a life of abundance and joy. Our hosts, Kurti Deva Perriman and Tina Ryan, are your guides on this spiritual journey who blend science with soul to offer practical wisdom for harnessing your divine energy. We celebrate the beauty and imperfection, embracing the chaos of life's journey as a catalyst for growth. The Divine Mess isn't just a podcast, it's a movement towards wholeness and self-expression. So come, laugh with us, cry with us, and grow with us. Every episode is an invitation to explore the depths of your being and to live out loud, authentically, and unapologetically. Subscribe and join our community of seekers as we support each other in this extraordinary, messy adventure we call life.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening. Welcome to the 56th episode of The Divine Mess. And today we have another special guest on board, and we have been having a flow of interesting and really insightful guests that have been teaching us about life and reminding us gentle reminders from the universe for us, for both me and my co-hosts. So before we move on to our guests, I will briefly introduce myself. If it's your first time listening, I'm Kurti Deva Perriman. I'm the cosmic alchemist at the Golden Temple. So just like the Divine Mess, we are evolving. So those who have been listening to us, you know, I am the founder of the Heroes Mystic, but now I'm collaborating with someone else. And she is the founder of the Gateway to Miracle, and we decided to go for the Golden Temple. That's a brief of what's going to happen, because we are still in the launching phase by the time of the recording, and I'm pretty sure by the time you're listening, you will hear all about the Golden Temple. And this is the Divine Mess, where every single week I share the couch, I would say, or coffee, with my co-hosts who live 8 hours by flight from me, Tina Murray, and she's a self-love coach, just one label. She's a busy mom with 4 boys, and she's a fast runner of 5K. She does it under 15 minutes. And also, she has been sharing for over 56 weeks now, consecutive weeks. We have been sharing the couch, and this year we decided to open it to our guests. And today our guest, she lives with an invisible disability. She had her articles published on the Mighty Nonverbal Learning Project and different other articles as well. She's a writer, speaker, paraeducator, and today we are welcoming Michelle Steiner, and she will share a bit more about her story, about how she navigates her divine mess through the learning disability. So welcome, Michelle. I hope I've made a bit of justice with your bio. I cut it short because I know we can talk more about it. And the first question is can you share your journey a bit with us about you and your learning disability as well? And if you can give a brief definition of what it means. Thank you.
Sure, I would be happy to. Thank you so much for having me on. My name is Michelle Steiner, and I have a learning disability. I was diagnosed with having one whenever I was first in kindergarten. My kindergarten teacher noticed that I was really struggling in the classroom academically, and I also struggled socially as well. But I was having trouble with counting, tying my shoes, dot-to-dot pages. And I was my parents' first child, so they didn't have a lot to base development on. So she recommended to my parents that I get tested for having one. And they sure enough, they found out that I indeed do have a learning disability. And at that time, learning disabilities were an umbrella term. They weren't, they didn't have specific ones like dyscalculia. But they knew I was not going to be a math genius at age 5. We understood that. But when we're talking about learning disabilities, what they are is it's a way that if somebody has a discrepancy in how they with information and how their brain is just wired differently. I have to learn differently. I have to have different strategies in my life to be successful. There's just some things that I'm not able to do. I'm not able to get math, and I'm not able to drive, and that's okay. And they come in different forms. There's dyslexia, which a lot of people are familiar with. That is a reading disability where it involves language, where people just sometimes have difficulty with reading and hearing how words are pronounced. There's dysgraphia, which I think I have as well, which affects your handwriting. And there's also dyscalculia, which I know I have as an adult. I have just trouble with how numbers work. I also confuse my right from my left. And my visual perception is also affected. And that's in my brain, not in my eyes. So it's my reaction time. And I also have limited hand dexterity in both of my hands. And a lot of these things, some of them I wasn't diagnosed until an adult, like the hand dexterity. But when I look back on a lot of that stuff, I can say, oh, that the light bulb just went off, that is definitely something I struggle with. After my diagnosis in kindergarten, I had to repeat the grade in a different school in our district. It was still a public school, but they moved me to another school. And I began to receive specialty services and accommodations for having a disability. And when I was really little, I was really frustrated. I just wanted to learn like my peers and make my parents proud and happy, but they always were proud of me. And it was also really hard socially because I went to a very small conservative school district where if you were one of them, you fit in. If you were different, they feared a lot of those things. And I couldn't hide that I went into learning support to go for a class, or when I got into regular ed classes to have a test read to me or extra time on them. And when I was young, it was, oh, we don't want to play with you, or you're not our friend. And that was hard. It got harder as I got older socially. Because a lot of the peer groups became more defined. Academically, it became a lot easier for me. My grades improved. I was in all regular ed classes except for math and a resource room. I knew I was good with reading and writing. And I also just knew that I could handle a lot of those classes that were regular, just not the math. And I can remember, though, socially, it got a lot more challenging. A lot of the groups were more defined. And I just looked at them and I thought, I don't really fit in with any of these groups. And I did find an artist group that was just right outside of my school district. And that was my first taste of having acceptance and other people that shared that interest. And then when that group stopped meeting, I found another group. I started an adult writing group. And that was just amazing. I'm still friends with those people 20 some years later, and we are in each other's lives. And it's just really a great experience with that. And that was one of my struggles. And I also struggled whenever I was figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. That was another thing that was really hard. I knew I wanted to go to college, but a lot of people thought, oh, with your learning disability, you can't do that. And I had a learning support teacher that suggested going to a trade school. And that just wasn't really what I wanted to do with my life. And then I got connected with the federal agency that helps people that have disabilities. They pay for college, they pay for testing and accommodations if you qualify. And I indeed did qualify, but the psychiatrist told me I was most likely not going to go beyond community college. I get to community college and there's even more struggle with that. I can remember I had a professor that told me I was going to have limited job choices. And there was such a stigma that surrounded disability accommodations. A lot of people thought, oh, that's cheating. And I didn't use those services and my grades dropped. But when I finally used them, I was able to graduate and things got a little bit easier for me. after graduation, I moved out on my own. I loved having my independence. I loved being close to everything. I had some temp jobs, but as much as I loved it, I always wanted more for myself. And be careful what you wish for. I did have to, for financial reasons, I had to move back in with my parents. And that was really difficult. I was at a job that was downsizing and back home with mom and dad. And I thought, all right, this is the perfect opportunity to try to go back to school. And I found through a lot of research, I found a program a university that had the least amount of math and science possible, had a program that I just loved doing, and I had disability accommodations. And I went and I used them. I advocated for myself. I said to my professors who were new, my name is Michelle, I have a learning disability. These are the services I'm going to need. I used a note taker, extended test time, and my grades really improved. I made Dean's List for a semester, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree despite being told I couldn't do that. After I was done with that, I still struggled though. I mean, I did find another job. I moved out on my own. I worked at some other jobs that say that they were disability friendly, but they certainly weren't. And eventually, I also met my husband while I was in college, and we got married. And I found a job working with students as a paraeducator for about 13 years now. And I just love being able to make that difference. And I finally got the courage that my friends in my writers group told me to write about life with a learning disability. I was so afraid because I thought, well, it's shameful. I don't want to talk about having a disability. I think I wrote some bad poetry and some other things. And when I finally wrote that piece after I moved into our home and I couldn't unlock the door because of my hand dexterity, there was a prompt on the Mighty that said, write about a seemingly easy task for other people that's really hard for you. And I wrote it and they published it. And I had such a great response that it encouraged me to write other articles. It encouraged me to start my own blog. And it also encouraged me to photograph things because I'll go on a lot of my walks because I can't drive, or I'll be in the car with my husband and I'll be like, did you see that? And he misses that because he's focused on driving. But I get that chance to go back and take a picture of a flower and get details that other people miss. So and I can just look back and just say everything in the universe that I thought was going to harm me or just wasn't going to work out has really turned out in my favor.
Thank you, Michelle. Like that's a really powerful story. You know, like you shared a lot about your struggle, like during your life and how you have changed, and now how you said that the universe is blessing you. How did you shift from seeing your learning disability as a disability, but rather as a gift now?
I think a lot of it was after I got my bachelor's degree, I started to realize that, okay, I have a purpose. I just could see there are things I can do. And I know that difference, that'll be different for everybody. Maybe it's not for everybody to get a bachelor's degree or to get maybe even a master's or even an associate's. But for me, that was a big change. And I started to focus on things I could do because I know that I can't do math. If I get into a math class or something that involves a lot of that, I'm not going to do well. And I no longer looked to that to complete me. What I did is I focused on the things I am good at. I'm good at reading, I'm good at writing, and taking pictures. And when I focused on all of those things, that is what brought me joy and satisfaction and empowerment.
It's like, sorry, he and I are looking at each other going, who's going to ask the next questions?
Okay.
So completely left of center. How did you meet your husband? And that I'm a little bit love crazy, so I'm interested to know what the story is behind that.
I met my husband when I wasn't even thinking about it, because there's so many things I can look back on that led us to that place. I met him at an art center when I was volunteering, and he saw me walking on the street. He wondered, oh, who's that girl? Where is she going? And it turns out we were going to the same place, and we had mutual friends, and we got to know each other that summer. And then when I look back at certain signs that this is what the universe was giving me, I could just see them so clear. I was talking with a friend years ago, and he asked me, oh, are you seeing anybody? And I said, oh, I really haven't found anybody. And he said, I think you're going to meet somebody, maybe at a place like this. And I met him. That's where I met my husband, was in the exact same place that my friend was telling me about. And another friend had a dream about me. He said, I had this dream that you got married, and I don't know who the guy is, but you're standing in a vintage dress, and you're standing in front of the courthouse. And the vintage dress, definitely, that's my style. I love that. But I thought, why would I be standing in front of the courthouse? And we had our wedding reception at the art center, and we went up to take pictures, and there's a park, and right behind the park is the courthouse. And I didn't think about it until we got our pictures back. And there I am, standing with a vintage dress on in front of the courthouse with my husband. And there's just all those little signs. And I think it was just giving it all to the universe too, because I had a lot of really bad relationships before that. My ex was breaking up with me, and he was saying, I think you could drive if you wanted to, and I've been tired of taking you places. And other guys just said, I don't want to be with someone that has a disability. And there was just a lot of broken relationships. And I finally just prayed, and I said to God, don't send me anybody until it's the right person. And he heard that and did send me the right person.
And so is your husband an artist as well, like you?
Yes. Yes, he paints. He also loves to write too. And he sends out postcards. That's his big thing. He loves sending out postcards with poems on them. And he is also a musician, and he plays guitar and banjo. And I have no musical ability whatsoever. So he got all that.
And how do you find living day to day with what you would term an invisible disability? Like, what would normal people take for granted that you don't?
I think sometimes it can be hard whenever I'm presented with math, because it's difficult if I'm out. It's always a surprise when I go to the register at the store, which I'm sure it is for everybody, but for me, it really is a surprise. It's hard for me. I can't read the face of a clock. I confuse my right from my left. Also, my processing speed is sometimes slow. So if somebody asks me a question or wants me to repeat something back, I have to go through an extra step to do that. That's tough. And then with my hand dexterity, that can be really difficult for me if I'm out in public. I was out shopping and trying on clothes, and I went to return them, the ones that didn't work out for me, and I had a couple that did. And I was trying to put them on hang them up, and the woman that was running that, she goes, oh, aren't you going to hang those up? And she couldn't see the struggle that I was having with both of my hands with that. So I think that's a big factor too. Unlocking doors can be really hard for me. I can be in the grocery store and might look different, how I might have to unload my cart. And I just think that sometimes that can be, those are just some of the little things that I just have to consider. And then not driving too. I live in a central location where I'm able to walk to places I need to go. My husband is able to take me to work in the morning, and I have a wonderful coworker that can take me home. And I have some other ones that can do that as well. And I'm also able to walk if all else fails. So it's just those little things sometimes that I encounter, but I just try to look for the solutions and a different way to handle the situation.
And did you always have a super, I suppose, positive attitude towards the fact that you were different? Was it just something that you went, well, this is me and I need to find a workaround? Or was it, a journey through woe is me to get out the other side, to realize that what you have is actually a blessing because it gives you the ability to be light for somebody else.
Yes, it was a journey for me because when I was young, I didn't want to be different. I wanted to be like everybody else. I didn't want to have a brain that learned differently or needed to do different things. And I would hear motivational speakers that would come into our school and they would talk about, oh, you can do anything you put your mind to. And every school year I thought, okay, this is going to be the year I'm going to get math. I'm going to be popular. And none of those things worked out in my favor. And none of those things are bad necessarily. It's just not the journey in life that I'm to follow. And so that was hard. And I can remember, okay, I'm in college. I bet this is going to go away now. And I had other people say, oh, yeah, you're not going to struggle with it. And I did. And sometimes when I was misunderstood, it was difficult too, because people would say that I wasn't trying hard enough when I wasn't doing well in a class or I could do better. And the point was, I was doing the best that I could do. And I had a really negative, I was fearful about, could I get a job? Am I going to have accommodations on my job? Is this going to work out for me? And I was very negative about myself. So it was really a journey to look at it as, okay, there are things I can't do. That's okay. I have a disability. That's not really an issue. It's sometimes the barriers that in the community are the issue with that. And I think it was just that journey of accepting myself for who I am, that this is me. It's just a part of who I am, and that's okay.
So can you like share a bit more about like your journey of accepting yourself? Because a lot of us, because you, a few times now, you mentioned that you focus on what works for you. You focus on what you
Yes.
love doing. And like for people who are finding it hard to accept themselves, like what's your message towards them?
I would really focus on things in your life that bring you joy, that you love doing, and to really think about, okay, how can I incorporate that joy into my everyday life? I think that's a big thing too. What can I, because everybody has purpose, everybody has value. People just, and it looks different, and it should, because if we all were the same, it'd be pretty boring and nothing else would get done. So I think the first thing is acknowledging not only what your heart, what's difficult, but also what are you good at too. And for the things that you can't do, I think it's just accepting that and just saying, okay, maybe I'm not good at that. And that's all right. And learning to just, it's so much easier for me when I accept that than it is when I think, oh, I'm going to just be able to overcome this. And I also think it's another thing is that we can't control the reactions of other people. I knew that when I went to university. I couldn't control that some of my peers were going to make comments and saying, oh, disability accommodations, that's giving you an unfair advantage, or doesn't everybody have a disability? I can't control that. But what I can do is use those services to help myself and to know that I'm doing, at the end of the day, I'm doing the best I can do for what I have. And as long as I'm doing that, then that's all right as well.
Have you, over the time that you've obviously been in the education system throughout your own personal experience, but now that you're in that field, have you seen a shift or a change in the way in which children who have these unseen disabilities, whether it be ADHD or whether it be, you know, dysgraphia or whatever the label is that people want to put on it, has there been a big shift? Are you seeing that there's a momentum towards a change of acceptance that every child deserves obviously an education and they deserve to be educated in a way that works for them?
I have seen that they do have programs like Best Buddies, where they might match somebody that has an intellectual disability with a peer that doesn't, and they can do sports and they have recreation with that. And I think that's a great program. I do think that it's hard sometimes for students that do have learning disabilities because a lot of them are now placed into regular ed classes in the basic, and that's hard for them because they're struggling in the room to be able to keep up. But they also have opportunities that of having regular ed classes for a lot of the things maybe they are good at as well. So I can see that. But a lot of times it's still really hard. It's like hearing a recording of myself sometimes at that age. I can just a lot of times it might be kids making fun of each other that have disabilities. And I try to go when they're saying things that aren't really kind or true. I'm like, okay, we don't say that. That's not very kind. And I try to educate them on that. I also hear students that will tell me they don't like having their disability and that they feel stupid and they wish they didn't have an individual education plan. And I get that opportunity to go and tell them that they're not stupid. Their brain is just wired differently. Another positive change that has happened is we do much more with transition services. We try very hard now when a student is ready to graduate from high school. We give them we started early on what they would like to do. It gives them an idea of, I want to go to college or I want to go to trade school. And we start going to colleges and they look into programs and accommodations, or they look at jobs that they would want to have and what kind of services could be out there, like job shadowing, or just what resources are available, even like resume writing. And that's to give our students a realistic view on having their disability and what they would like to do when they're done with school.
And do you, sorry, and do you find that parents are more accepting of being in that place where they have a child who has, an unseen,
Yes,
what some people would consider a disadvantage, but in actual fact, like you say, it means they're wired differently, which means they learn differently, which means their perspective on things is not the same as everybody else, which from how I see it is great because it means you've got people who think differently and look at the world differently and provide interesting introspection. How have you helped parents as well? Because they've got to traverse this as much as their children do.
Right. In my role in the school, I don't get a whole lot of contact with parents, but a lot of times with my writing and my blog, I will have parents that will come up and they will tell me things about their children. A lot of times they want to know what resources are out there. And they can tell me that, oh, that my daughter or my son has some of the same similarities in that. And I think it is more of an acceptance thing. It's if you can look online with people putting up videos just about information about having disabilities, there's that conversation that's going around. If people were talking about things and perspectives. And I think that is so important to have that disability representation and to have parents that were like mine. My mom and dad never gave up on me. They explained what my disability was. And that was much better information than I was getting at school, sometimes from peers who were bullying me for that. And that would be my advice to a lot of parents is to educate your child about the disability, put it in the simple age appropriate terms so that the child does understand what it is. And I think families, they have a lot more resources and a lot more education to their child's disability. And I think sometimes even legal services to go into an individual education plan meeting as well.
So for me, I come from a country that's like learning disability is like considered taboo. We don't talk about it. It's not part of our education system as well. So my parents have been both educators for their whole life. And like I know my dad, for example, like will be helping kids like with learning disabilities, but it won't be talked about because sometimes their parents feel ashamed of what's going on. So I'm really, like happy to hear that your parents were very accepting of you and very supportive. But how can we support those parents like who feel that sense of maybe shame or maybe they are blaming themselves for what happened. Because in my culture as well, sometimes we blame it on God and we say it's a curse from the family, or maybe it's seen like that. I'm not saying it's those reasons at times, but this is how it's viewed. So do you have any advice for people listening, like even they know someone of that, but it's not talked about, and how can we be more accepting towards it?
I think one of the first things is educating families when they come in, and you have a teacher, or even if a pediatrician notices that something might be going on, or a therapist, and it's educating the family on what the disability is. And I think it's also reassuring people too that this is not something necessarily that is the fault of anybody. It's something that happens in life, and that is just it. Here are the tools we can do to help. And I think it's also working with the family too to understand that sometimes they might also be grieving too. Sometimes it's a grieving process for the parents of grieving that they had a child that's not going to be normal, and the child grieves too. I had to grieve a lot of those losses myself. So I think it's educating families and working with them. I also think that it's showing disability representation too is really important. Showing, having literature and giving some of those to the family, but also with students, not only that have disabilities, but ones who don't as well. Doing a curriculum that really shows that what people with what disabilities are, and addresses a lot of that too, to be able to change that. But I think it's just working with people, reassuring them, reassuring families that it's going to be all right, and that it's really not a shameful thing. It's just a part of life.
It's interesting how you talk about the grief, because we spoke to Christine Davies, wasn't it? A couple of episodes ago, and that's excuse me, that's the realm in which she plays in. She deals helping people deal with grief and loss, and normally obviously we associate grief and loss with losing somebody,
Right.
but not with losing the potential of what somebody may have been, and then my child is not this, or my child is not that. Instead of, like you say, the acceptance part is massive, like having to do your own inner work, as we say. It's never, it's not easy, and the only way to do it is to go through it. All the things that we avoid are the things that we need to face in order to get to the other side. So, obviously, if there are parents that are listening and they are struggling with the grief portion of where they're at in their story, then it might be worthwhile getting in contact with Christine to help. We all need a life preserver every now and again with certain aspects of our life. And there are people out there that can assist, like yourself in your writing and, in teaching people about, you can live a perfectly happy, full, rich existence, even though your perspective on the world is different. It doesn't make you any less. It doesn't make you any different. It just makes you you. It makes you the unique person that you are. So I think that parents need to find their own way through, which then shows their children that there is a way to find their own way through as well. But it is a challenge when you have a child who doesn't learn in the same way and doesn't fit the norms and struggles to find their own way through the path. My son is one of those. So it's been interesting to watch his journey and to watch his own acceptance of where he's at and his choice not to medicate to change the difference.
Right.
So we tried it and it didn't work for him. If anything, it made his situation completely worse. And obviously everybody needs to find their own method of working through what they have. But for us, it was diet and it was exercise, and it was
Right.
him just coming to accept that he didn't see the world the same as everybody else did. And now that he's in that space, he's excelling because
Exactly.
he's just found his own way of doing things. And it's like a completely different person. It's literally like, he's changed his perspective. So therefore he's changed the way the world revolves around him. And that's what I said to him, the minute you see it differently is the minute that the world sees you differently. And it's been such a beautiful thing to watch this, mind you, as a parent, the struggle, it's real. It's absolutely real going through it. And there is light at the end of the tunnel for those that are, as parents, struggling. There is a way through, and we each need to find our own way through. But at the same time, ask people for help. There is no shame in asking people for help. And it may make your journey just that tiny fraction easier. Don't be an ostrich. Don't stick your head in the sand, and don't pretend like it's not happening and sticking your fingers in your ears and chanting to yourself. It is, and you need to have that level of acceptance, like you said, and find your way through. Use the tools that are available to you.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah. So, Mr. D, where are you?
Yeah, well, no, thank you for sharing about this, like the parenting side of things as well, how your son view the world and how it's important for parent to understand that. But I think like in the divine mess, we won't be able to speak, ask our guests about spirituality. It won't be the divine mess then. Like you mentioned how you ask for God about the support and, like to send your husband your way. So how did God for you, like help you to navigate through this journey?
God really provided a lot for me that I couldn't even do for myself, because I used to always wonder, well, where is this purpose? Where is this plan? What good can come out of all of this? And slowly he started to show me what good can come out of a lot of pain and a lot of sorrow for so many things. Sending me somebody definitely was a blessing, and I couldn't have planned that. But also there are situations even today in my life where I get to see that. At my job, sometimes all the kids know, do not ask me for help with math. I am not good at that. But sometimes I'll be put in a situation where they'll expect me to try to do that. And it can be really hard. And I remember I was trying to help a student this year with that. And I looked at the heavens and I thought, why am I in this class? Why am I doing this? I can't do this. I know I can't. And somebody said, that student there's a student crying. And I went over to him and I got on eye level and I told him, I said, I have a math disability. And I know how hard it is. And I can't help you, but I can give you I want you to tell me when you're struggling so I can get you the resources. And it's been so awesome to see this student flourish, because now he's content. He's happy to raise his hand. He asked for help. He worked so hard in the room and he's not crying anymore. I also sometimes think I might have a student where I can't help them, and there'll be another situation that'll come up, and I'll say, okay, what are you trying to teach me in this moment? And something will happen, and I get that chance to go up to a student and talk to them. And I just hear that little voice saying, see, I didn't want you to teach him that math or what you thought you were supposed to. I wanted you to do this. And I think it's just looking for those moments and trying to just look at all the blessings and just things that happen that I thought there was no good in that and couldn't be redeemed. But little did I know that I could use it. And I'm able to do that with my writing too. I'm able to write about a lot of my story of having a disability that I never thought would come to any good. And a lot of people say, well, that's my story, or I struggle with that. And you gave me the verbiage to be able to do that. And when I hear that, that makes me feel that I'm connecting with somebody and I'm helping another person not to feel alone.
So I'm speaking from my psych background. We know like during the stages of, there are 5 stages of grief that's on well known for. Among them, there's anger in one of the stage. I don't remember the number, like which number it is, but I know there's anger. So for you, have you ever felt like during those time, like angry at God or frustrated at God? And how did you navigate that?
At times I do. I mean, because I can go back to a lot of those stages, and sometimes there is that anger and there's that frustration. And I think it's being really honest and open about how you're feeling, because God knows how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And to just tell them I'm really upset, I'm really upset about this, and why is this happening, and to come with your questions, and you'll get an answer. It may not come that day, may not come that minute. It might take a whole year. It might take a lifetime to know that, but it's giving that, and to be honest with that, I think that is definitely the big thing. And also to find creative ways to express that. Sometimes if I'm having a really bad day, you'll see it on my Fitbit, because I'll go to the gym and I'll be on the treadmill, I'll be on the elliptical, and that helps me to deal with that. And I'm usually in a better mood after that happens. But there's other ways too, like reading sometimes helps, meditation, just a lot of different things are therapeutic to be able to deal with how you're feeling. And writing has also been key too, because sometimes when I write in my journal, there's nothing between me and my journal. I can write. I can also put my characters into stories too. I remember there was somebody that I would really that hurt me, and I wanted to say a lot of things, but obviously we patched things up, and I couldn't really. You would never want to say some of those things, so I put my character in that place, and other people could relate to this character in the story. And so I think it's finding that outlet and just being honest about it.
But I think that's the biggest challenge that we have as humans, is that we want everything to be beautiful, and we want it all to be sunny, and we want it all to be fabulous.
Yep.
But we have to exist in duality, right? So there's got to be the balance, because if there isn't the balance, then it's extremely lopsided and you're going to fall over. If you're expecting everything to be sunshine and roses, you have to be able to, in the pleasure, in the pain, find the pleasure, and, in the sadness to find the happiness. There's always something, I think, that we can be grateful for, even when we're down on our knees and in our shittiest moments. There's always something that we can be, tears streaming down our face, absolutely incredibly grateful for the opportunity that the hardships provide us with, because it's like a muscle that needs to be strengthened all the time, because we signed our contract. We came here with an innate purpose, and all of these things that are being put in our way are giving us the skills and the tools and the ability to be able to live it out. But if we expect life to just breeze through and everything's happy and it's like a Mary Poppins movie, it's not going to get you where you need to go, and then your purpose is unfulfilled, and then you get recycled and you get to do it all over again, but learn the lesson, people. Take what you need from it and keep going. It doesn't mean that you get to quit, because you in your position could have very easily chucked a tantrum like a 5-year-old and put your hands and your feet up in the air and gone, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing life. It's all too hard. I have crappy relationships. Nothing works out for me. It's not fabulous. But you allowed your faith to hold you steady, to keep you going. and to help deliver the things that are purposefully for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you share your faith with others? How do you share your belief in the bigger picture with the students that you work with?
A lot. Well, that's the job amount. We really are not able to influence them. But I can pray for my students if I'm in a situation. I can just, pray that someone's going to help them out with the whole situation. Give me the words, give me all that I can do. I can also be of service to them too, and look for those opportunities and those moments to be able to help other people as well, and to try to be that example.
Oh, it's my turn now. Okay, thank you. It's like for listeners, they can't see us. It's like we're recording on Zoom, so each other like we're waiting who is going to unmute and who is going to ask the question next. But I feel like Michelle's story is just a story of resilience, of faith, and never giving up. And this is what's about the divine mess. That's how we decided to open, like the doors to people who can share their courageous stories. But for our listeners, like, do you have any advice for them? I know you have given a lot of golden nuggets throughout the episode. Do you have like one advice that you want to give first to people who are struggling with learning disabilities, who may not know about it? And for second is like for parents, third is like for the educational world,
Right. I think one of the best things we can do for someone that has a disability is not to give up. I think that is the big thing, and to focus on what they can do, and try to remember the success doesn't always come in the package that you expect, but sometimes it comes in something even better. And for parents and educators, I just want to encourage them not to give up on their students, and that there is hope and help out there and resources, and that if we empower them and we really work together, we can create students that are going to be successful in life. And I also just would love to tell everybody not to have that there's no shame in having a disability or a shame in being different, and to just encourage and embrace diversity.
Beautiful. And do you have like any places where people can contact you, like a website? I know you spoke about your blog, about your resources. So we'll be happy to share them. If you send your links as well, we'll be happy to share it with our audience. Like, are you offering coaching as well in now another aspect of your life? I know you're a busy person with your writing, photography, paraeducator.
I would consider doing that in the future, but right now I'm just trying to do a lot of speaking and things like that. With doing that, and I have my blog, and people can find me at michellesmission.net, and I also am on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Okay, beautiful.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, and always the conversation from the first meeting to now, very different. But that's always the way that it goes for us. But we would like to say we love you. Thank you so much for joining us on the 56th episode of The Divine Mess. And we look forward to having you join us on the couch next week. But until then, take care and be kind to yourself.
Thank you, everyone.